Gentlemen, please sit. I'm going to be sitting here. I'll sit here. I think you'll be sitting there, Minister, in the middle. Thank you very much indeed. Fantastic. Serpentine walks. Is this true? Paint me the picture, gentlemen, please. Who's going to be the one that tells me about this walk around the Serpentine Lake and trade deals were struck? Is this in the manual, how to sign a trade deal?
Well, I'll share some details. We'll maybe keep some back, but let me say at the beginning, it's great to be here at IGF, and thank you for those really kind words, Manoj. And I'd also say, I think we'd both like to recognise our teams of people who we work with, who did a brilliant job on this as well. But yes, we, I always, and again, I think you've talked about this, Piyush, I believe that India is, one of the most exciting countries in the world, and actually one of the most important. I think the problems we face globally, I can't see any way to fix those without India playing a leading role. And it was obviously going to be a priority for me and the team. And Piyush, you've said before, I originally came to see you in opposition. And so when I was in opposition, and you were, as ever, concluding lots of successful trade negotiations around the world, and I said, look, because we've got an election in the UK and you have yours, I don't want you to not do this deal with the Conservative government in the UK. I want you to do it, and I want you to have confidence that we would honour that if we became a Labour government in the UK, because it's so important. It goes beyond politics. We've got to see if we can land this. And obviously I said if it wasn't done, we would pick it up and take it on. And that is what we did. And I felt, and again, from that first moment we had, and you invited me around your house, which was incredibly kind, just a shadow Secretary of State. And I thought, this is a guy who gets things done. And I think that is what everyone says about you, Piyush. And so, yes, we did the final bits of this. I had a little bit of paper, which I quite grandiosely call the Serpentine Accord. So I wrote down 4 things. We were on those issues. And we did, because you'd mentioned to me it was one of your favourite places in London, again, reflecting the relationship between our 2 countries. And we only 1 lap around the Serpentine was all we needed, I think. Right. The measure of that. So, yeah.
Minister Goyal, what are your recollections? And if I can ask, why Secretary Reynolds telling you in opposition, which he was, that wait for us, strike the deal with us?
I'd like to correct you. I think my first meeting with Jonathan had a profound impact on me, because back home in India, politics sometimes gets quite vitiated between the government and the opposition. Here was a gentleman, then the Shadow Minister of Trade, along with the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lamy. Both of them were in Delhi, and I had a totally bad day. So the earliest that we could meet was sometime late in the evening. I think it was 10:30, 11 in the night. They were gracious enough to, at my request, agree to come. And we had a lovely conversation. Of course, Mr. Lamy was almost half asleep. As I reminded him the other day when we were celebrating this in the High Commission in Delhi. But Jonathan was very much wide awake. And it's very important for all of us to correct the perspective. You took it wrong.
Yeah.
Jonathan told me then that I will encourage India to conclude the deal with the then government.
Fair enough.
Even though, by and large, there were a lot of public opinion polls out and everything was pretty much out in the open, that very soon there were elections in UK and there could have been, the result was almost on the anvil.
Yes.
But despite that, he encouraged me to take it forward, conclude the deal quickly, and assured me that in case you're unable to conclude, we will come into government. He had that courage of conviction that they're going to win, that we will come into government, we will honor whatever you have discussed, pick up the thread from there and conclude it quickly. Yeah. And that's exactly what Jonathan did.
Yeah.
That bipartisan support and the grace that he demonstrated that day, I have seen throughout our discussions since he took office. And as he came to know, and many of my friends in UK know, I love this city. I love London. There are occasions when I'm on a transit and often would create a transit for 4 or 5 hours so I could get down, get out of Heathrow, change into my tracksuit, take a walk on Hyde Park, have a cappuccino at either Serpentine or Lido, and come back, have a shower, and back to the airport. Used to be something I would love to do. And 2 things that Jonathan did that touched my heart. I was here 28th of April, 28, 29. He presented me with a book along with a letter from the author. Yes, Minister.
Ah.
My favorite. I've been seeing it when I was a child. Soon as I got sworn in as a minister, I reran the whole series to re-educate myself and prepare myself for all the Humphrey Bogarts of the world. And what Jonathan did really touch my heart. He gave me a signed copy with a handwritten note from the author of Yes, Minister. And after our discussions, I was off to, I think that time, Norway and Belgium. I was just on a train ride back when he sent me a message. Just a simple WhatsApp message. It's a bright, sunny day in London. How about doing a walk at the Hyde Park? And the rest is history.
And history. History was made.
I think you're missing as well. I'm pretty certain I bought you an ice cream as well, which is... That'll add to the trade figures if you buy one in Hyde Park, I'll tell you that.
I owe you one.
What was the ice cream?
I think you had a nice vegan chocolate.
Oh, really?
Oh, he's got a sharp memory.
I would say, Mark, I mean, I know for UK audience here, I mean, that bipartisan view of this that we had in opposition. I know we've had some opposition in the UK and from the opposition in the House of Commons. I've got no fears about that. I think that this deal speaks for itself. I think the arguments that we have put forward about
Secretary Reynolds, if I can just jump in, because there is opposition. If I can just say what it is, the opposition party has raised concerns about what the world will know as social security provisions. Here in the UK, we know it as national insurance for Indian workers, who essentially will be exempt for 3 years. And your opponents say that this is a tax break for Indian workers. British workers will be losing out. And the reason why they say that is because there's a cost of living crisis and every penny counts. So can you address, Secretary Reynolds first,
absolutely.
Please address those concerns first.
Those claims put forward by our opponents, there is no basis in them whatsoever. So this is not the case that if you employ a British person, you would be paying more tax than if it was an Indian person you were recruiting. This is a business mobility provision which the UK has with every country in the world. So anyone who's temporarily posted across from a business, a multinational seconding a member of staff, pays for the first year their domestic social security tax system rather than ours. For 50 other countries in the world, we have extended provisions because business mobility is important, and obviously it's reciprocal, so UK nationals employed by those companies in India pay into our system, Indian nationals into their own. So the argument is this: given we have these arrangements for a limited degree for every country in the world, and for a great many countries an extended period, why would the UK refuse to offer that to India? Why would we uniquely discriminate against India when the economic relationship, the personal relationships, the history is so strong? That makes no sense. So to be clear, no British worker is undercut by this agreement. It is completely false to say that. It is true to say that business mobility is improved by this alongside those headline reductions in tariffs, access to services, procurement, that sort of thing, all the classic elements of a trade agreement. So I honestly believe there is no basis in that. And I would be very, very surprised if any of my political opponents want to say they would withdraw in some way from this agreement, because I think...
You think it's going to get through that? This is all just water under the bridge.
I think the Sunday Times, which doesn't always get everything right, but I think one of the columnists in the Sunday Times afterwards said, this is just not a serious opposition.
I just want to add one point, because it's important that everybody in UK comes to know exactly why this is a part of this agreement.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not something that we raised after the new government came in. This is something that has been on the table for the last almost 3 years of discussions. And almost 2 years or 2.5 years ago, this was made a non-negotiable part of our discussions to bring balance and equity to a trade deal between two economies. One which has a market of 1.4 billion aspirational young Indians, and the other which is a smaller set of people and largely whose day-to-day needs and whose desires of life have been taken care of. So this was a part of the deal for nearly 3 years now. It was an assurance given nearly 2 years ago that it will be a part of the deal. And therefore, I think it's very unfair to call this as a giveaway or any of that. And secondly, these are people who are adding value to the UK economy when they come here. They don't come here just loitering around. They come here when they are required to perform some activity in UK. They are given a job, that's why they come here. And since they do not stay long, they stay few years, less than the 10-year threshold, this money would otherwise not be kind of paid back to them. And therefore, this was discussed 3 years ago, that in all fairness, such temporary people who come to add value to the UK economy should not be, in a way, double taxed. They pay these social security costs in India and in UK. I think that's not fair.
I'm glad we cleared that up. We've got 8 minutes alone with Secretary Reynolds. He has to go for a meeting. I don't think I'm giving anything away. The meeting's with the Prime Minister at 3 o'clock. Any breaking news, Secretary Reynolds, that we need to know about in your upcoming meeting?
There's a lot of breaking news around the world.
Yes.
I am sorry, it's one of those, there's no negotiation.
So if you don't mind, Minister Goyal, I'm just going to ask Secretary Reynolds a few questions because we've got 8 minutes. There's a lot to address. I know you want to speak, Secretary Reynolds, about the geopolitical side. We are clearly living in a world of protectionism, of geopolitical fragmentation. So this trade deal, this agreement that you've struck, it's significant. How, Secretary Reynolds, how are you both, India and the UK, how are you jointly navigating these new sets of these big challenges that we're seeing in the trade space and the wider global arena right now?
Absolutely. And Piyush is the veteran of this, so I'm loath to comment in his presence. But I would say, look, first of all, this is a very challenging time. Trade has become one of the top items on news programs in a way that, frankly, we wouldn't usually quite expect. I have journalists ring me up all the time asking, what is this MFN tariff? What is non-tariff barriers? What does this mean? The challenge for the UK, I believe, has come as well in terms of the decision that was taken, that we took as a country to leave the European Union. That's obviously opened up the possibilities of the India trade deal, which is quite exciting. But, a lot of promises were made to the British people during that referendum, weren't really fulfilled. Global Britain, we're going to be able... And look, I think, first of all, how we need to navigate these times is to say I believe this government can make the UK one of the best connected markets in the world, if not the best connected market in the world, and that would come from being able to be in Parliament, the vehicle that could deliver a deal like UK-India. We could not be perhaps encumbered by the past and that referendum and come to terms with the European Union to improve the deal in a way that doesn't exclude opportunities around the rest of the world. We've had that breakthrough with the US, and we have other things in the pipeline. So I think, I want the message to be the UK is one of the best connected markets, will continue to be, and if you want in the Western Hemisphere a stable place to do business, the UK is a good place to do that.
As you said, we had that thing with the US. I'm going to touch on that now, and the other things that you might have up your sleeve. On Monday, in case you missed it, President Trump signed the executive order. The trade deal is now done. Car makers are going to benefit in Britain. The aerospace industry is going to benefit as well. Not quite yet the steel industry, Secretary Reynolds. Is the steel industry going to enjoy the same benefits as automakers, the aerospace, or are they going to be stuck with this pretty punitive tariff of 25%? What can you tell us?
Well, it's a priority for me and for the government. Obviously, we were excluded from the 50% increase, but I want, in particular, the Port Talbot Steelworks and the brilliant relationship we have as a government with Tata to be one of the beneficiaries of this. People will be familiar. There are existing rules of origin, the so-called melt and pour rules in the US, which, as we're going through a transition in Port Talbot, wouldn't, under the technical way they apply that, fit their criteria. But I am absolutely of the view, and have said so publicly and will continue to say so, that this is an incredibly important part of domestic industry for the UK. I mean, I see Tata as close to a home company as is possible for a company that isn't. And that relationship is very, very important. So look, we understand the US position. It continues to be something we work towards agreement with them on as part of a wider negotiation to agree a way forward on the so-called reciprocal tariffs, the 10% in the short.
How soon, steel? Give us a sense.
That will be part of the negotiation that wraps in the reciprocal tariffs as well. And that is ongoing. We've proven we can get to a position to agree with our friends in the US. But no one should think, having achieved the breakthrough we've had on aerospace and on automotive, that it's job done. It's job saved, because we've saved a lot of jobs in this country because of that. Yeah. But there's more to do.
You've had a good month, I'll give you that. You've had a great month, haven't you? Because we've had, in the last month or so, I think 6 weeks maybe, deals with India, best ever bilateral deal post-Brexit, that's what it's been called. Deal with the US, which was announced, which was signed on Monday. And of course, the EU. We forget the EU. I need some breaking news, Secretary. otherwise, Manoj isn't going to employ me again. So you need to give me something. What's next? Who's next? I've heard GCC countries, some sort of deal. I mean, what's coming next? I need something, Secretary Reynolds.
So you will know in the Labour manifesto, the priorities were India, written into the manifesto, and the GCC was the other one. It's slightly harder negotiating with the customs union, isn't it? But it's definitely a priority, and it's within there. And look, I think there's a message there about, and I think both Piyush and I recognise this, the world is looking for people to try and find a way through some of these issues. We all know it's challenging. No point in us saying, it's a challenge. We know it's challenging. People are saying, can people work together? We want to see politicians work together to try and find a way through that. And I think our deal is a great bilateral deal for us both, reciprocal benefits, but I think it has also been a statement to the world. I have to say, very proud of that.
As the UK has managed to forge a deal with President Trump and the US administration, I thought, well, as you're sitting next to the man who is currently trying to strike an interim deal with the US, what's your advice? I'm sort of joking, because you've managed it. So many would say you must know something to forge a close deal with the US, because I know India is pretty probably close, and I'm going to ask you this, Minister Goyal, to close to signing an interim deal with the US, we hope, maybe. What's your advice to Minister Goyal?
No advice, because he's the man with the track record.
You've achieved it, so many will be asking, you must have done something.
Our relationship to the US, we're a services-led economy in the United Kingdom, so some of the deficits on goods that the US is very animated about, that wasn't the starting point. We have taken a lot of time to acknowledge. I think there's a sense in some quarters when I was at a conference in Brussels a few weeks ago, and I was saying the same thing. We should not think, say, sitting here in the UK, that the US is disrupting global trade. We should ask ourselves, has global trade disrupted US politics? And actually, it's not just about one administration or one president. There are things in US politics about how their economy works, about their position in the global economy. Whatever we think of that, and I don't, for instance, believe that VAT in the UK is a tariff barrier, and we've had frank discussions about that. I do think it is important to sort of engage and recognise. In the same way, I can talk to Piyush about domestic political pressures on him, and he could talk to them about his, and that builds trust, I think. And that means if he says to me, Jonathan, actually, this is a showstopper, and I say, actually, for me, mine is this. You have the basis to do that. And I think whether it's the US or this negotiation or others, that is an important thing to have if you really want to see the progress we all want.
Minister Goyal, before Secretary Reynolds goes, I'm going to ask you the final question for him, and then we'll continue the discussion. I'm hearing rumours that later this year, Prime Minister Starmer might be going to India to sign a certain trade deal. Might be. Could you give me some breaking news? Otherwise, I'm in trouble. Can you please confirm, is such a visit possible? Maybe Secretary Reynolds will be coming along. When's this deal going to be signed?
Every time I've come to an IGF program, I've got a promotion after that. Why are you trying to demote me to the Prime Minister's scheduler?
Okay. So you're not giving anything away. Secretary Reynolds, is there a trip to India booked? Can I ask
A good piece of advice, friends, is never sign up your prime ministers to schedules without them being present to do so. But I do know that our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Starmer and Prime Minister Modi have, I think, a really strong rapport. And I think they've obviously...
I mean, just on a serious note, ideally, how quickly could or should such a deal be officially signed?
I think we're both working at pace. We have different processes to implement trade agreements on either side. I've joked, Piyush, to my cabinet colleagues, your whole cabinet reads the text, doesn't it, together to go through it. I've told my cabinet colleagues we might try that, see how they react to that and go through. But no, we are working at pace. And I can see, I think for both of us, it's probably my final message is to say that having built a relationship to deliver this, we would want to continue bringing you into this. And if we could continue this, Piyush, and we could bring businesses together, already so much great stuff going on, but if we could use this platform. Like I said, we only cleared the way. It's business to business that is what this is about. Yeah. But goodness me, I am genuinely excited by the opportunities.
It's a landmark deal. I want to just go back a few steps because we had to sort of jump ahead with Secretary Reynolds. To many, implementing a trade deal, it's a huge thing. So what are the top 3 priorities in the next 12 months? 2 or 3 priorities to make sure that the deal actually delivers, so actionable. How can we ensure, what are you doing to ensure this deal delivers in the next year?
I think the process in UK is slightly longer.
Yeah.
India gets the trade deals approved much faster. So I do assume that in the next few months, we may not be able to enter into force the agreement until the UK processes are complete. But this is a time for us to build business-to-business connects. This is a time for us to have people understand the nuances and benefits that this deal can offer them, the opportunities that will open up. To the extent that whenever I'm traveling now, including the flight by which I came, the Air India plane by which I landed this morning, I had at least a couple of people who came and met me and said they've come to London this morning to check out the market and see what we could do more and what kind of business partnerships we could create with the companies in UK to further mutually beneficial business. So I think a trade deal can only fructify, can only benefit both economies when the businesses of both sides start engaging with each other. The last time I was here, about 3 months ago, I'd come with a very large delegation of business persons from a variety of sectors, probably the largest business delegation ever to have come to England, to UK. They were very excited about the possibility. At that time, it was still not finalized. It was the possibility of getting finalized. But there was a lot of excitement in the room on both sides. And I think our effort over the next, say, 12 months, on the one hand would be to close the trade deal, but more importantly, have more and more British business persons and Indian people, business people get together, get to know each other, get the connects done. The India Global Forum can play an important role, as can all of you distinguished ladies and gentlemen. BBC could have also played an important role if they were willing to play a balanced, fair role.
There's no one from the BBC to answer that, but actually Nisha did work for BBC World, so I'll let her later answer that. But no, please carry on, Minister.
No, that was only because somebody had told me that you had a connect, somebody had a connect with BBC. So I think what I would encourage more and more people to do is look at the comparative advantage in doing business inter, say, UK and India. Every country in the world has some competitive advantages over the other. There would be areas in which UK would be very strong and can add huge value to the India growth story. And there will be many sectors where India can add value to the UK growth story. We have to bring these complementarities to work together, to engage with each other. We've assessed the entire trade and business climate in both countries. There's hardly anything on which we really compete. We actually complement each other. And therefore, I think it's a good marriage. It'll be long-lasting. And I see in the future the bilateral trade between the two countries doubling in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I see in the future, we already have a very balanced two-way investment. So Indian companies have invested almost as much in, or probably a tad more in UK than what the UK companies have invested in India. A free trade agreement brings stability and predictability to the relationship between two countries. That gives confidence to business persons to start investing in each other's economies. And I think this will also pave the way for greater investments in the two economies, intersect each other, add to our trade in goods and services, a sector which UK is very focused on, financial services, insurance, business services. India and UK can partner in innovation to work together to bring more resilient supply chains, working with each other, complementing each other, and adding value and profits to both countries and to the businesses of both countries.
I did joke lightheartedly about Secretary Reynolds giving you some advice about how to deal with the US, how to negotiate with the US, which I know you're doing, but US tariffs do take effect on India and other countries in July. Can you give us a sense of how talks are going with the US? Do you think an interim deal is likely before US tariffs take effect in July? How's it going negotiating with the US? What's that like?
You can imagine with such a vibrant press in India, this is a question I'm asked almost every day.
Yeah.
And for the last 6 years, working with different countries, I think my Indian press has at least now understood that they're not going to get anything.
They're not going to get anything. Not even a snippet.
But what I can say is that every negotiation stands on its own legs.
Right.
Every negotiation can only work when there's merit in a deal. It has to be a win-win for both parties. Just like in business. You strike a deal when it's a win-win for both parties. Until both get a fair, equitable, and balanced transaction, no deal can ever be successful. And we are striving to work together with many countries.
Yeah.
I am currently in negotiation with at least 9, not countries actually, more countries, but 9 negotiations. EU, a group of 27 countries.
You've been talking to the EU, I think, since 2008. Are you inching closer?
No. Since 2008, others were talking
Not
with
you,
the
but
EU.
you as a country.
I started talking with EU
Yeah.
only in 2022.
But the country was 08, I think. Is that right? Was India? Did they start talks with
They
the EU
started
in 08?
talking in 2008, maybe
Yeah.
even earlier. But,
Earlier, right.
But I don't think they were able to.
It's been a long time.
They were not able to come to that.
How's it
landing
going
zone
with the
for a
EU?
long-
How are talks going? Are you close?
All my talks with the 9 partners with whom I'm working
Yeah.
currently
Oh, good.
are going very well.
Oh, can you give us any names, other names? Who's top of the list? Who's next?
You know, when a parent has, well, I can say 9 children also, but when a parent has children,
You
they
don't
never
say your favorite one, do
differentiate.
you?
They never do that.
I don't know. I've got 3 kids, and there are days where one of them is definitely my favorite. The other 2 annoy the hell out of me, and in my head, I'm thinking, you're my favorite, you 2 are not, but I don't say it. So I think in your head, this is it. There you go. This is it. What you might be able to tell me about, I'm trying here, Minister Goyal, is the bilateral investment treaty, the UK-India bilateral investment treaty. It is still under negotiation. Give us a sense of the main sticking points. When might we see a resolution?
I think very good discussions are going on. There's nothing which I would call a sticking point. I think there's negotiation on both sides to try and get the best bilateral investment treaty which works for both countries. I would like to commend Chancellor Reeves and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji and their teams who are both engaged in finalizing it. And I'm very confident and an optimist who believes that it'll happen soon.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks for answering that. Let's speak to the audience, Minister, if we can. What's the message you want this audience to take away today? We've got investors, business leaders, we've got wonderful young entrepreneurs. What's the big message you want this audience to take away today about what this deal, this FTA, remember we had an agreement, every time I mention FTA you clap. What's the message you want this audience to take away, Minister, about what this deal means for their future?
I think the best way to understand why this deal matters for businesses in the United Kingdom would be by explaining to you where the India growth story is headed. We are currently a $4 trillion economy, the fifth largest in the world. By the end of calendar 25, when this year's numbers come out, we would be declared officially as the fourth largest economy in the world. There are different reports that we may have already become the fourth largest, but we generally wait for the IMF or the World Bank to come out with their statistics. And by calendar 27, India is slated to become the third largest GDP in the world. That's one data point. Second data point I'd like you to recognize is that we are a young country. Our average age is still 28 years, 28.4 years. I dare say there's no comparable country of size and scale with such a young population expected to continue to be young for the next 3 decades. And these are children, these are young men and women. 2/3 of our people are in the working age group. Almost 80-85% adding value to the economy. These are people who are connected to the net today. 1 billion people who are on the internet. Every family in the country has a television set at home. They're seeing what's happening across the world. That's the dreams that the young Indian has today. His aspirations are big. He desires for the best. He's willing to work hard to meet those dreams, to achieve those goals and aspirations. Now that drives India, the world's fastest growing large economy, and I think will continue to drive India over the next 30 years. So imagine an economy which is growing in US dollar terms almost by 10% a year, doubling every 8 years. By 2047, when we celebrate 100 years of independence, would have grown from a $4 trillion economy today to a $32 trillion economy in 2047. I dare say in the history of mankind, there has never been a bigger economic opportunity that ever presented itself. And with a decisive leadership where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is willing to take very, very strong decisions, a leader who's willing to affirm his vision with action, I think India is well poised to present to UK businesses a great opportunity to engage with. We can help the UK economy grow faster in a very uncertain world, full of volatility, full of uncertainty, full of challenges and crisis. India is an oasis of stability, of fast growth, of a people generally very peaceful, known worldwide. We have 40 million Indians across the world, recognized for their talent, for their skill, for the value add to local economies, and for their peaceful nature. They assimilate very well. We have a large Indian diaspora in UK. You would never have found them wanting in terms of their loyalty to the UK. You would never have found them creating any kind of disruption to the peace and harmony of the communities in UK. And that is the strength of India, and that is the strength of the UK-India partnership.
Minister Goyal, I could talk yet. I could talk to him for hours, but sadly I'm not allowed. So we will finish it up now, but can we just give a massive round of applause for Minister Goyal? Thank you very much.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. Thank you
was
very
very
much
nice.
indeed.